Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Straightforward topic, let's do it. What is the scariest story you know that is 100% true? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Stanislav Petrov should have a statue commemorating him as an effing hero in every country in the world. His instruments told him that 5 nuclear missiles had been launched from the US headed for Russia. Against his standing orders, he decided they were false alarms and did not launch the counterstrike. He was completely correct. One time while I was living with my parents in 4th grade, there was a woman who had escaped custody of the FBI, who was reported in our area and had an unknowing pawn shop owner sell her an assault weapon from his shop, which she used to make threats against multiple different schools in our area. We had to wait for our parents to come into the school to pick us up, and for about a month after, I swore my mom would pick up the closest sharp object whenever a slight noise was made, but she denies it. The FBI found her about a week or two after the original claim had come out, dead, and completely naked in the forest with 3 gunshot wounds and the gun in her hands. And about 2 weeks ago, our school was one of the schools that got swatted with false threats. Something's weird with Reddit, but I don't see my comment anymore. Anyway, years ago, my aunt heard the neighbor's cat scratching the door. Really annoying, but she managed to not be bothered too much. It turned out it was the neighbor, stabbed in the back, trying to reach out for help. When I was a sophomore in high school, some junior high kids were skipping school and were approached by an older man who asked if they wanted to party. They said yes, and he drove them into the woods about 2 miles from our high school. He got them drunk, 2 girls and a boy, tied them up, R'd them all, then shot them. One girl was shot but got away. She ran to the nearest house and then accompanied police back to the site. The man had cleared out, leaving the other girl shot in the head and the boy shot with his mouth slit to his ears on both sides. This event pretty much solidified the old mantra, never go with strangers, for my friends and I. Yeah, cautionary tale indeed. I mean, I know these situations are extremely rare, but when they happen, they're absolutely devastating to that family and the entire community. There is a cave in a hill in a Battambang province, Cambodia. The cave entrance is high above the cave floor, so there's a pretty big fall to get inside. The Khmer Rouge used the cave as an execution site. Sometimes they would kill a person and dump the body in the cave. Sometimes they would hit a person with the butt of a rifle and dump them in the cave. Sometimes they would only dump the body in the cave. There are, I don't know how many people who died of dehydration in a dark, lightless cave, most likely with injuries from the fall that made it difficult for them to walk, let alone escape the cave. They were surrounded by decaying corpses, the newly dead and other injured and slowly dying people. This is how their time on Earth ended. I visited the cave over a decade ago, and at the time they had installed lights at the bottom and left the remains where they were. It still haunts me. They've since put the remains in a stupa, a type of Buddhist reliquary monument, and made the cave a memorial site. Here are the cliff notes. Student at my high school bought a revolver from another student on school grounds. On a Wednesday, he used said revolver to kill his mother because of an argument they had. Hid the body in the apartment, came to school Thursday and Friday, held parties at the apartment Friday and Saturday with the body still there. Sunday was spent using his mother's credit cards and selling the revolver to someone else. Monday, he took to the road in his mother's car. Tuesday, the other tenants complained of a foul odor coming from the apartment, for which the manager found the body. That same day, the revolver was used in a drive-by shooting. I know these details because at the time I was part of the volunteer program with the local police department. The volunteers got called in to help with the investigation. Additionally, the volunteers knew the mother, who was an active member of the local communities. I'll go for something that happened to me. When I was little, I used to visit the elderly couple next door, as they were kind of like my grandparents. One day I was over, was only Granny and me. We hear scratching and terrible gargling sounds at the front door. We both panic. Granny says we will not open the door because a couple of years back, some maniac attacked his wife with a knife, who then dragged herself to Granny's door, pleading for help. And the crazy mother effer comes around the corner and trashes their place. Mind you, I'm like 9 or something. So we stand there listening to those terrible sounds, knocking and garbled noises, scratching, as they slowly get more and more quiet. Minutes later, we learn the source of the noise. It was my mother, almost choking to death on a bay leaf. She only survived because Granddad, a retired EMT, came home just in time to find her on the doorstep and was able to dislodge the leaf. The thought I was listening to my mother dying is the worst thing ever. I don't know if the finer details of the story, but apparently this guy went down to Mexico and ended up smuggling some drugs he got from the cartel, thinking he'd be able to get away with not paying. Well, they found him, and they drug him out into his yard, doused him in gas, set him on fire, and left him to burn. Me, my mom, and my brother were visiting my mom's friend in another state. We were at her house, and she was having a party. I think it was someone's birthday, since there was cake. Anyways, this old woman came over and smiled at me, so I smiled back, even though I had no clue who she was. Everyone was talking, and she made a joke, but no one reacted. A few minutes later, this other lady made the exact same joke word for word, and everyone laughed. Later that day, I asked my mom who the old lady was. There was no old lady there, none. No one older than my mom was at the party, and no one was standing in front of us. So who or what was that lady who smiled at me? It's pretty wild. Maybe a little sixth sense going on right there. So, pretty cool. Has it ever happened again? This is the most disturbed I've ever been. I dated a girl in high school who lived next door to a family with 5 kids, ages 5 to 17. She would babysit them very often, and I would come over to help. Fast forward a few years. I'm now in college. We broke up over a year ago. Haven't heard from her since. I get a text from her, turn on the TV. A FedEx driver, who's the mother's brother-in-law, shows up to their door and knocks. One of the 5 children answers. He asks if her parents are home. She says no. She doesn't recognize him as her uncle because her aunt, the person he's really looking for, left him years ago and ran away. The FedEx driver forces himself inside and tied up all 5 children, makes them wait until the parents come home, ties them up too, and demands to know where the aunt is. They really didn't know. He shot all 7 of them in the back of the head execution style. Only one person survived, the 15-year-old girl. She managed to wiggle out of the duct tape and covered the back of her head with her hands. The bullet ricocheted off her fake fingernails. Yes, you heard me. She played dead until he left. After he left, she called the police and told them what happened, and said he's on his way to their grandparents' house, which is close by. The police luckily got there before he did. 3-hour Mexican standoff before he surrendered. A man working on an offshore oil rig needed to fix something, so they clipped him up to a cable and lifted him to do the job. After he was done, he signaled team to hoist the operator to lower him back to the ground. The hoist operator hit the switch in the wrong direction. The winch began to pull the cable up instead of spitting it out. To make it worse, he turned his back to the window, making him unable to see his team below. And to make it a bit more worse, it was so loud that he wouldn't hear them either. Well, to make it even worse, the cable that was used to lift the guy was fed through a metal mouse hole, like a metal tube basically. This metal tube had the width of maybe a little less than the average person's shoulder width, and the guy, being carried by the cable, was being pulled straight towards it by his harness on his waist. After much yelling from his team to the operator to try and make him stop the winch, the worker who was attached to the cable essentially got snapped in half as he was being forcefully pulled groin first through this little hole, and slowly, very slowly. By the time someone got the idea to phone the operator to stop the winch, the worker had already died after being cracked in half. Only a part of his waist actually made it through the entrance of the hole. I have two. So my sister and her family were living with our parents. It's the week before Christmas, and my parents, sister, and her kids have all gone out to do some last-minute shopping. This left my brother-in-law in my house by himself. Our dog Jake was a pretty chill pupper. He passed last year, and he's hanging with my brother-in-law having a good time when, without any warning, he gets up off the couch and goes charging across the house and into my parents' bedroom. Across their bed, this dog never got on the bed ever, and over to the sliding glass door. My brother-in-law had followed after the dog and was just in time to see some guy hauling ass through the backyard and over the fence. And Jake just went back to being a chill pupper right after. Just, my job here is done, and went back to the couch. Freaked all of us out when we realized that my dad had forgotten to put the safety bar down on the door before leaving, because he figured someone's home and will be letting the dog in and out. Never found the guy either. Second story is from a few weeks ago now. I'm chilling in my room. My mom and I share a house since my parents split, and I'm on a Discord call with my friends. All of a sudden, I just hear a gentle tap, tap, tap on the bedroom window. My cat instantly wakes up and is staring at the window with a look of, the is that? Fur going up. So I'm usually and suddenly quiet on the call, just listening when I hear it again. Tap, tap, tap. It's audible on the call too. I turn my bedroom light off. No one is outside the window as far as I can see. There's a huge bush there, so I convince myself that it's the tree branch. Next day, I found someone had broken part of the fence, and there was now a clear path through the fence to under my window. We have cameras now. No more tapping has happened since. The Scariest massacre of the Guatemalan Civil War. The mostly Mayan village was accused of harboring insurgent fighters, and the government sent their special forces to wipe them out. They found no insurgents, but the orders were to obliterate them anyway. Some of the stuff they did was so sadistic that the Guatemalan government, post-Civil War, actually sentenced some of the bastards to over 6,000 years in prison. I believe there were only 1 or 2 survivors from the entire village who had managed to flee into the woods. My husband's family lived in a nearby area, and when word got out, they lived in absolute fear for months. One girl was offered a ride by a man since he was going the same direction as her. Since the girl was standing in the cold waiting for a bus for a long time, she got in. After they drove for a while, she noticed they're going the wrong direction. The man started screaming at her that she will never escape. She thought about jumping out of the car, but there was no door handle. Then the man told her to take off her hat. Confused, she took it off. Before that, she got her hair cut short, and the man preferred long hair, so he stopped and let her go. What she didn't know, she just survived an encounter with a serial killer, Ted Bundy. I read a lot of these stories for this channel and for other channels, and I've come across quite a few people that have had run-ins with a young Ted Bundy, and I don't know, he had a preference, I guess. Just realized I have several stories of people being murdered in several horrific ways. Additionally, there are plenty of stories of attempted murder. So to keep it a little more lighthearted than that, because that's absolutely effing grim, one time I was camping out in the woods with a friend. There was supposed to be like 10 of us, but we were around the age of 14 or 15, so most people bailed. On any occasion, we were drinking in school and alcohol, sitting around a campfire, and everything around us was pitch black. My friends started to get more and more creeped out and anxious about something in the woods getting us, but I wasn't too worried. There were stories of cults and whatnot roaming the woods, but I figured it was all just exaggeration. Besides, who wouldn't want to catch a cult and see what they're up to? Well, about 2 a.m., my friend still hasn't fully, even after some campfire shenanigans, drinking, playing instruments, when we heard what could only be described as loud-ass gunshots, maybe only half a mile away. Then, some more a tad closer about a half an hour later. So we hiked the F out of there and got our shit back the next day. As time went on and I learned about the world, told people about this story, most people figured it was a type of scarecrow farmers used that blast blank shots off every so often. That's probably what it was, but it makes for a harmless, scary story at least. Here's an extra quick one. About 2 years after this camping by some cliffs, we lit a campfire in a cave, and it rained down spiders on us inside the cave. That shit was a big nope. My neighbors and parents would always talk to their kids about how they need to keep their windows closed at night because a man had been getting up to people's windows and staring in or trying to enter. I wasn't really scared, if anything, then, so I left my window open one night to tell them it's fine. I was sitting on the bed listening to cars and the wind, looking at the light when it got dark all of a sudden, so I started going to sleep. I was sleeping and I heard someone breathing on me. I turned my eye over just a bit because I saw a man standing over me when my dad heard a car honk. He opens the door and he screamed, "Get out!" and grabbed the guy, throwing him into a wall. As he got up, he screamed and grabbed the guy, throwing him into a wall. As he got up, he grabbed a knife, ran at me, but my dad picked him up and threw him out the window. The window was able to fold upwards. It was really cool, but I thought I would fall out one time. But he fell down, and I heard his body make impact with the ground. He groaned, and I look out the window, and he's gone. So then we wait, and police are called, and they find out their man had been stabbed during that night by some teens.